Hello and welcome back to the Hardwood Hoops podcast. This is episode 60 and this is our latest team special. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Dan Healy from Miami Heat UK. How you doing, Dan?
I'm very well, thank you, Liam. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks, mate. After a late one on Sunday watching the All-Star game, I slightly regretted it Monday morning, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, absolutely. I stayed up for the contests, but I gave the game a miss. So
yeah, that's not a bad idea, to be honest. The amount of sleep that I got on Sunday night was not ideal. But anything for an All-Star game with no fans and no defense, I guess. So plan for the pod today, I'm going to ask Dan 5 Heat-related questions, kind of get his feel on the team, so any of our audience can kind of learn more if they're not watching as many Heat games as Dan does. So let's start off with a little bit of an All-Star recap then. You said you watched the competitions. What were your thoughts in general of those? Were they weird without fans, or were they kind of just normal now that we watch games without fans anyway?
yeah, it has become sort of normality, but it is weird. I mean, I've never been a massive All-Star fan. I know it's a big deal worldwide, in America especially. I know the players like it, etc. But it's never really done a lot for me. But the contests I always find quite interesting. But what you love about the contests, especially like the dunk contest, for example, is they feed off of the energy of the crowd, and that had all gone this year. So it did feel a bit down, a bit flat, but. Yeah, the dunk contest was missing something without any sort of key names there. But the 3-point contest was good. I really like that. Nothing better. There's not many better sights in this world than watching Steph Curry light fit up your television screen by hitting some form. What a player! What a player! Just when you see him in full flow like that, it's just it's something pretty special. So that was good fun. But the game itself, I gave a miss. I tend to always give the games a miss, to be honest, because it's obviously a chance to catch up on some sleep after watching all games throughout the season. Yeah, it's never really been that much fun for me. But I caught the highlights. It was okay. It's never really floated my boat.
Yeah, I think, it was a bit unfair this year with the draft because LeBron's team was always going to win. Anyone that thought LeBron's team with that lineup wasn't going to win, I think they were kidding themselves. Because if you get Curry, Giannis, LeBron on the same court, even if LeBron only plays on like 12 minutes, I think, that game is just going to be a wrap, which didn't help. But I agree with you that the 3-point competition was by far the best thing for me. The fact that Steph won it at the end as well on the last shot just made it even better. I just think what a climax that was to a good event.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he caught form at the right time. It was, as I said, it's you're just watching someone. There'll probably never be another shooter like him. So to watch him in full flow is pretty special.
No, that could be Duncan Robinson in a year or so. I'd have to see.
I sort of thought that maybe a year ago, but I think I was maybe getting ahead of myself ever so slightly because the league has sort of learned a little bit how to deal with Duncan Robinson now. So he's not having quite this season that he did last year. But Duncan's still a great player for us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the only other thing I'd add to All-Star was, as a Mavs fan, anyone should go watch the skills challenge because you'll see Luka not caring at all about the skills competition. He basically mailed it in, walked up and down the court, didn't really bother with the pass, and then didn't even get a shot off in the end. So I think he was just there just to make up numbers. And I don't think they'll put him in again because he just doesn't care. He has too much fun. He doesn't care about the competition like some of these other players, I don't think.
Yeah, definitely. This is something you sort of saw last year, first All-Star appearance last year, and it just seemed like all he was doing was just loving being there, just being in the moment and just having fun. The game and the contest, etc., were just an afterthought to Luka. He just loves being around stars, and he just looked like he's having a great time.
Yeah, I completely agree. Cool. Well, let's move on to the Heat questions then. We'll start off with an All-Star based one whilst we're talking about it. Obviously, no All-Stars this year for the Heat. I thought Bam was going to get in, to be honest. He was on my kind of voting list. Jimmy, I wasn't as shocked about, even though he's played so well due to the games missed. But what are your thoughts on firstly, those two not being selected? Did you think that was the right decision? And long term, do you think it could actually help this team? Because you get a bit more of an extra rest after all the injury woes you've had this season?
Yeah, I think that it's one of those, when the voting was done, you could you could understand the fact that both of them were out. I think at that moment in time, Bam did have more of a shout. He can maybe feel a little bit more let down than Jimmy, because Jimmy missed a lot of time. And we was also, remember, at that point, we was a losing team. We was on a bad run. As I said, nowhere near healthy. So we wasn't a good team. We was down in about 12th, 13th place in the standings. Bam was sort of having to take a lot of the load on himself, which is why his numbers looked good, but his performances were good. He's definitely getting better. He's elevating to another level already. So I feel like he could have been a little bit left down. But at the time of voting, when it got announced, I wasn't particularly grumbling. I could see there was an argument there for both of them, but I could also see the reasoning behind them not. Since then, however, they've both been on a tear, especially Jimmy Butler, who's came in sort of like a pissed off all-star that he's been snubbed. So he's been averaging almost a triple double since that got announced. So it just goes to show that Jimmy Butler is in full health, a very, very important player, one of the best players in this league, a player that can do everything from scoring, assisting, rebounding, leading the team, facilitating, whatever it is, Jimmy Buckets can do it. So he's been playing like he is 100% an all-star player. So you look at it now and you sort of think, a little bit disgruntled about it, but in general, I can't really moan about it. It's just it sucks for them a little bit that when the voting was done, we wasn't a good team. We was a losing team. Now we're very much a winning team. We've won 7 of our last 8 games, so we look like we're on a bit of a run. Health is coming back, but definitely to answer the second part of your question, this has helped us. There's no real reason why I wanted them to go travelling off after. Bam's had a heavy workload. Jimmy's had to play a lot of minutes to get us to become a winning team again. So I had no problems with them sitting at home for the next week or for the last week or so. And I think Jimmy in his last game said, we could do with some rest right here. So All-Star came at a good time for them. So I'm not disappointed that they wasn't involved, especially when obviously on the night of the game you hear that there's health protocol issues with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, which thankfully ended up being nothing in terms of anyone else and any repercussions coming that way. But that was just another sort of hitting home to go, thank God our All-Stars are sitting at home safely.
Well, exactly. Can you imagine if that was Jimmy and Bam that came together and then they had the issues? That you could have been talking a week or two after the All-Star with them not being able to play, and then you kind of lose that momentum you've already built, which is the whole problem, I think, with it.
Yeah, definitely, and it's also remember the Miami Heat and the Lakers had the by far the shortest off season. I think it was only 40 something days. It might not have even been that much. So they needed the rest. We've had our problems, as a lot of the league have. So I'm not making excuses, but certainly we've had our problems. We're just coming back to a bit of full health now. So this break has come at a good time.
Cool. Well, in terms of the season in general, then, how do you think overall it's gone? I know, like you said earlier, you had that losing record, and then I think you were 12th or 13th in the East for a good probably 9-day period, and then all of a sudden you've won, like I said, 7 out of 8, I think it was, isn't it? So like 10 out of 13 now as well. So you've gone on a really good run. What are your thoughts in general just on how the whole season's gone?
It's been a bit frustrating because we've had the off season didn't go as planned. And this isn't a dig because we wouldn't have changed anything. If you could run it back and go back to the off season, we would have done exactly the same thing. The idea was to keep the max slot open, not ruin flexibility, because we wanted to try and have a best shot as we could at signing Giannis. That obviously didn't pan out. In the meantime, we'd lost 2 of our best defenders, which was Jay Crowder and Derek Jones Jr. We replaced them with Avery Bradley and Mo Harkless, who are good defensive players but haven't been available. So our defensive side, you would have thought, would have struggled. But having said that, bizarrely, we've been a good defensive team. We're a top 10 defensive team. It's the offense that has struggled, and that comes down to players. As I said, Duncan Robinson hasn't got the free ride this year that he did last year. He's shooting below 40% now. Tyler Herro's dropped off a bit as well with his shooting. So offensively, it's not been good, but it all comes down, as I said, it sounds simplistic, but if you haven't got your best players healthy throughout the season, you're not going to win that many games, and that's what happened. Don't get me wrong, there were games there that we should have won and we didn't. There's some really infuriating losses, and also some bad losses to some bad teams that we should have picked up. So it's been a real mix. We inevitably, when you're good players, and when I say good players, inevitably I mean first and foremost Jimmy Butler. Once you get those sort of players back on the court together, you're obviously going to become a better team, and that's therefore the wins have started to stack up. But even so, we've still not seen this team at full health. Goran Dragic, Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler have only shared 79 minutes on the court together this year. That's crazy. Wow. Absolutely crazy. Crazy. And we still haven't seen them with Avery Bradley. He's hardly played at all. He's now almost back. We should see him back after All-Star break. So it's looking much better now. So to answer your question, I'm content. I think that the season has had some real ups and downs, but at the moment it's very much up. So there's reasons to look positive going into the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think the fact that East is so kind of tight as well this year almost helps, because you were like 12th and 13th at times, but you were only like 3 games back from 7th. You know, it was a very close sort of run, and you're up to 6th now, aren't you? Just behind the Knicks, who've had a great season, but you'd still expect the Heat to kind of take over and finish in that 5th spot. Which I think top 5 as well, which is what anyone would have thought before the season. You've only had Jimmy Butler for like 21 games as well, so I think that overall, the last probably 2 weeks has kind of made the season a lot better than maybe it was prior to that, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I know it's very easy to sort of look down the other side and go, well, you're only a few bad losses away, and now suddenly you've dropped back out and you're starting to get concerned about the play-in tournament, which nobody really wants. But I don't think, I think the Heat now will always look to get better. And we've had problems that are out of our control. Obviously, a lot of teams have, which is why the East is so wild this year. A lot of teams have had so many problems, injuries, and health protocols, etc. But you'd like to think now, as I said, that this team's good enough to cement a playoff place in that top 5, maybe top 4 finish.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think anything outside of the play-in tournament is just seemed as a success when you've had that many injuries.
Yeah,
so like we said, the Heat are in 6th. The Nets are in 2nd and have just signed Blake Griffin, who's kind of a player that I saw rumoured with the Heat. And I know I've seen on your Twitter page that a lot of players seem to be rumoured with the Heat. What options do you think are out there that you think are more realistic that you'd like to see the Heat strengthen with? Or are you in the other camp where it's like, I don't think we should do anything. We should roll with this team. Don't risk any assets and just wait and use that max slot maybe on like a Victor Oladipo, who's someone who's always linked with you guys. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you won't go a day without seeing somebody linked to the Miami Heat or seeing somebody in a Miami Heat jersey swap. It's quite crazy. But yeah, Blake Griffin was one of those that I don't think I mean, Blake's not the player that he was. Everybody knows that. But he's still a useful player. I think that saying what I would want Blake Griffin is a stretch. I don't think anybody particularly wants Blake Griffin, but you would take him. You would definitely take him. So the Nets have got a good player again, a useful player. He's somebody that I would have taken if we could have offered him a low deal like the Nets have got him on. So yeah, I wasn't gutted about that one, but I definitely would have taken him. In terms of what I think will happen, I do expect us to make some tweaks. I think that we've got a lot of flexibility now because we've got lots of players on team options. There's only, I think, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and KZ Okpala, I think, are the only guaranteed contracts at the moment next year. All the rest are either expirings or team options. So we've got plenty of flexibility there to do some bits. But at the moment, when you look back to last season in this same situation, we made some tweaks to the lineup by bringing in tweaks to the roster by bringing in Iguodala and Jay Crowder. And that sort of, when we got rid of James Johnson and Dion Waiters and Justice Winslow in that trade, that's what sort of turned our season around, because we became sort of playoff contenders and maybe title wishfuls to real genuine title contenders, which is, consistent with a run to the finals, and it's what deemed it to be such a good season, and it was because of those tweaks. So I do expect us to do something. I don't think it will be anything blockbuster. I don't expect us to. I think we've made inquiries about people like Oladipo, but at the moment the cost seems to be too high by all accounts. So I think we might wait that one out. But I think personally, if we're going to see anything, I think the realistic targets might be somebody in the like Rudy Gay, Thaddeus Young, that sort of move. I think that might be something that we might look into. There's a lot of people are split in our fan base to whether we feel like we need another sort of genuine scorer or whether we need another 4, because we've got plenty of number 4 options, plenty of power 4 options, but none of them are particularly that good. Kelly Olynyk is sort of holding that down at the moment, to his credit, but you don't really win titles or get into Eastern Conference Finals with Kelly Olynyk as your power forward, starting power forward anyway. So that's no discredit to him because he is doing a good job. But I think if we're going to see something, that might be where we look to go, somewhere like that route. I don't think it would be anything too blockbuster.
Yeah, I think Thad Young's almost a perfect fit, to be honest, from what you need, especially on the defensive end as well, because when you get all your players back, you're going to be even better defensively. But if you add Thad Young, who's a really, really good on-ball defender, good rebounder as well, I think
Yeah.
he'll complement Bam and Precious Achua quite well, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely, and it's something we need. We need rebounding. We're one of the worst rebounding teams in the league. We've not really got much size. Obviously, Maz Leonard got injured. He's now out for the season, and he was really good for us last year. So that hasn't worked at all. So we do get punished on the boards a bit. And yeah, someone, as I say, like Fadian would be right up my street. I would take that.
Are there any players that you wouldn't want to see involved in any trade you do? Like, if it's not a blockbuster deal, you don't want to see Robinson, obviously, or Tyler involved. But what are your thoughts on like Precious, for example? Is that someone you want to keep regardless, and you'd rather use picks, or are you kind of open now just to getting rid of a couple of your younger players just whilst you've got a young roster anyway?
I think that it will be one of those where if the right player comes along, and at the moment it doesn't seem like that is the case, but if the right player comes along, then anybody will be on the table apart from Jimmy and Bam, even Tyler Hero, etc. So, but they've got to be a special player for that to happen, and that's why I don't see it happening at the moment. Precious Achua comes into that bracket as well. He's another asset for this team. I said recently that I think Precious Achua's first season so far has been better than Bam Adebayo's first season. So I'm very impressed with him. He's got a bit of everything. I love how aggressive he is. I love how violent he can be, and how it just seems to, the energy off the bench has been great. So I've loved watching Precious. So it would take something, for me to want to give him up. We don't really have much in terms of picks at the moment, so that doesn't become as much of an option. But yeah, anybody is on the table if the right player comes along. But I just don't see it at the moment. I don't think, for example, if we could get a Fad Young, Rudy Gay, it won't be for giving up any of those players. Duncan, Tyler, Precious won't be included in that. So, that's where we've got to be looking to add if it is going to happen this season.
Cool. And I know in the question that I mentioned Oladipo, and so did you, in terms of there's been a lot of rumours about whether he's the next player, but you can't quite agree on price. I think the problem with Oladipo is everyone sees him that he's basically going to decline another offer if Houston do offer him one. He's already declined the first offer.
Yeah.
So he's going to be available for free next summer. Is he the perfect player to add to this team? Because he is the player that constantly gets rumoured, isn't it, with the Heat? Like, I know you say earlier, everyone gets rumoured with the Heat, which is true, but he is the one that every single month I just see constantly linked. People like Zach Lowe always mentioning him on the podcast, so people with good links. Is he the player you see most likely in the summer to be added as the next star, you think?
I think it probably will be now, which is quite stunning when you look at what we was targeting a year ago, but now it's fallen to Oladipo, and that's no slant on him because he is a good player. But the injuries concern me. That's why I'm not sure if I'd offer him max contract money. But yes, in terms of a fit, it is a good fit. He's a ball handler. He's a scorer. We've got lots of sort of good scoring options, but no guaranteed sort of mid-20s every game. We haven't really got that. We all know that Bam can do that. We know that Jimmy can do that when he wants to, but he's never really fussed about what he scores. He's more just about get the W. With Goran Dragic, you can't expect at his age to be putting up those sort of numbers now, but he'll always add to your scoring. Tyler Hero's the same. He's a bit inconsistent right now, still a bit raw. So definitely Oladipo will sort of cover that need. Defensively, he's a good player as well. So I do like the fit. The injuries just concern me a little bit. That's why if it's going to happen, I don't think it's something that we should be throwing max money at.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think the Mavs are in the same position. As a Mavs fan, we created a max slot. Giannis signs for the next however many years, and you kind of lose that target, don't you? And Oladipo seems to be the name that's mentioned with both teams. So
yeah,
I think it'll be one of us that ends up having to order some sort of outrageous Nike Oladipo jersey next year. One of us will be doing it.
Definitely.
Cool. All right. In terms of the rest of the season, then, obviously finals last year, a bit of a bad start to the season, which was not unexpected in terms of how lack of rest that you had, like you said. But where do you see this season going for the Heat? What's a good season for the Heat, and what's an unsuccessful season for the Heat? Would you think?
Yeah, this is a really difficult one because this team has got the potential to replicate what they did last season. Maybe not finals, but Eastern Conference finals is achievable, but it could so easily go the other way. I think at the moment a par season is second round exit. I think if we was to go first round exit in the playoffs or anything less than that, you would actually look back at this and go, well, okay, this season's been a write-off. I'm not really going to. It's such a strange season. I'm not going to really sort of lose my temper or get all wound up about the fact if this season bombs out, because it's one of those seasons everybody wants just done and dusted. It's been such a strange one. But I think a par season, you would say, okay, yeah, that's about this team's limit. would probably be a second round exit. Anything more than that, am I going to sit here and say we're an Eastern Conference final team? Probably not. That might be a stretch. Have we got the capability and the potential to do that? Yeah, we have. Especially if we make some, as I said, we make some tweaks before trade deadline. So I would be delighted with that. I don't see anything more than that. But I think a past season is going to be a second round exit. And ultimately, I think that's probably what it will be.
Yeah, I would really struggle to see this team having a first round exit and people kind of not being surprised at that because you were so good last year and the talent's still there. I think Bam's gone up another level. So if it was a first round exit, I think that most Heat fans would struggle with that. But aside from that, I think there is a bit more strength now in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
And a question I kind of didn't write down, but want to get your thoughts on. At the moment you're sitting in sixth, it's very likely that the top three seeds are going to finish as they are in some order, which is 76ers, Nets and Bucks. Which team would you least like and most like to play if you did have to play one of those in a round? Because I know you do have good success against the Bucks, don't you, historically?
Yeah, the Bucks don't bother me at all. I don't mind playing the Bucks, mainly because I know they've improved with Drew, etc. But I don't think they're ever going to be that much better whilst Bud's in control there, because he's so plan A and that's it. I just don't. They don't bother me. We completely outclassed them, out coached them. We was one stop away from sweeping them. In last season's playoffs. So they don't bother me, even though they are better. I would still back us to come through that in 7 games. I know it would be tighter because they've arguably got a bit better and we've arguably got a bit weaker, but I still fancy us. They don't bother me, the Bucks. But having said that, the Nets and the Sixers do bother me. I know everybody's going to point at what the Nets are bad at. Although having said that, if they get Drummond and obviously they've got Blake now, that's made them a bit better. But the problem with the Nets is, and I've said it many times, is it doesn't really matter about the defensive frailties because you're not going to keep 3 superstars quiet. At best, you'll keep 1 or 2 of them on any given night. You're not going to keep 3 of them, especially when one of them is Kevin Durant. So I know that's quite a simplistic way of looking at it, but I just don't see anybody over 7 game series stopping the Nets. I just think that they'll coast their way to the finals this year. The Sixers have got much better. They've always not been our best matchup anyway. They're pretty big. They've addressed their issues. They've got good balance now. They've got shooting. So again, I think that would be a much tighter series, but it's not one that I'd fancy. That both sort of worries me. I don't see us really getting through either one of those series. But as I said, Bucks, anybody else, yeah, we'll take them on.
Yeah, so almost an ideal scenario is another Celtics Heat a matchup, I think, and then the winner plays the Bucks, and I think both teams would be happy with that. And then you just go against the Nets, don't you? And whoever wins out the Nets and 76ers in the Eastern Conference Finals, and just hope that Jimmy can have another crazy series like he did in the bubble.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, nothing put past Jimmy, but another year older, has had COVID. It just goes to show what a player he is, because he went toe to toe with LeBron for 2 games out of that. Where he took him on and beat him. So it just shows you that he can compete with the very best. But that can't be the game plan, because we can't rely on that sort of a player who's getting into his 30s now. That I just don't see it being enough. But that's certainly not a slant on Jimmy Butler by any means.
No, I do almost think that Jimmy would relish playing the Nets, because I think he would just see those 3 superstars and be like, all right, he'll just go at them every single time down the floor. And as a neutral, obviously I know that you as a Heat fan would probably want to avoid the Nets as long as possible. But as a neutral, I would just love to see Jimmy Butler play against those guys, because I think he would just find James Harden as much as he could and just drive at him down the lane every time. That's what I think would happen.
I think it would be a pretty high scoring series, yeah.
Yeah, it would, yeah. I think Bam as well is an ideal person to try and defend KD and Embiid in those 2 series. But I think trying to defend them and stopping them scoring 30 is still it's a very tough ask, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. I think the best you do is you slow them down. You don't stop those sort of players, especially Embiid at the moment. Blimey, he's MVP favourite for me at the moment, Embiid.
Yeah, same. I think he'll win it as well, especially if they finish with a top 2 record in the East. I think Embiid will win it. Okay, cool. And if you've got, just say we're being optimistic and we've got a Nets Heat Eastern Conference Finals, what are your views on the West? Do you think it'll be a Lakers one again, or you think that the Jazz are for real?
It's a difficult one. I think you still got to say the Lakers because they've had their troubles at the moment. They're missing big players, which always makes me smile a little bit because they sort of ignored that when it was us that was having our injury problems in the finals last year's. But now they've got theirs. They seem to be getting a bit of a pass on it. Now they're losing quite a lot. But any team that's got LeBron James and Anthony Davis at full health are going to be a struggle to get through. I think their roster is built for the playoffs. So I would still say I would fancy them to come out of the West. The Jazz, it remains to be seen. They're a good team. They're playing very, very well. I think that there's a slight, not issues, the wrong word, but they're the least impacted team, I believe, by COVID. I think they've only had had 2 players miss games because of COVID, which might sort of, give them that helping hand to why they are performing so well. But maybe that's a bit harsh. The Jazz have done well. They can only beat what's in front of them, and they are beating them. They're playing very well. It remains to be seen because we've seen it quite a few times, haven't we, with the Jazz? They just can't get over the hump in the playoffs. And at the moment, don't know. I don't think nothing too much that's going to change my mind there.
Cool. And speaking of the Jazz as well, would you say that Heat win, I think it was 124, was it 125 maybe, against 116 against the Jazz? That's probably your best win of the season, I think. That's kicked you up another level.
Yeah, I think that was it probably was our best win of the season. We went from losing some really bad games to, we threw away games against the Clippers. We threw away when they had 3 All-Stars not playing. Then we threw away a game against the Warriors when we was up by about 6 with 40 seconds to go and lost in overtime. And then we came back from that by beating the Lakers and then the Jazz in back-to-back wins that were really, really, as I said, kicked us up the arse, as you say. So, the All-Star break sort of came at a good time, but also a bad time because we was in momentum and nothing sort of breeds confidence better than winning basketball games. But we'll see. We're rested now. We've got players back to full health, so hopefully we can kick on.
I have to say, watching your videos, if anyone doesn't know, the Miami Heat UK's YouTube channel is arguably the best, I think, out of any other team channels. And your video after the Warriors game, when you guys do your live video, the pessimism was real. And then obviously after the Jazz win, when you go back and watch the same videos, you guys are much more optimistic. It's quite funny to watch.
Yeah, we're extremely fickle, like all sport fans. Yeah, we lose a game, it's tear it up, get rid of this team, rah rah rah, and then you win a game, and it's like, no, we don't need to do anything. We're good. We've also got I think we've got the second easiest schedule coming up now after All-Star break. So you'd really like to think that we get some distance at least between us and the play-in spots.
Yeah, completely agree. Cool. All right, well, that's my last specific Heat team question. In terms of obviously running a fan account as well, we had another one. So 3 people actually messaged me the same question, one of which was Rich Barrett from NBA UK fans. He kind of wanted to know what your favourite memories / moments you've had actually doing the channel. So not necessarily only basketball, but like interacting with people. What are your highlights since you've been doing it?
Oh, that's there's been loads because I think that the YouTube thing is something that's new. I'm trying to get that off the ground, which is tough. Even though I've got a relatively good following on Twitter, getting people to come and look at your stuff, especially when there's so much good, really, really good coverage out there, especially with the Heat. They've got 2 or 3 real key accounts that do some fantastic work. So trying to get people to say, hello, little old me over here, turn your head and come and have a look at my stuff as well is tough. But I'm just doing it because I love doing it, like especially these new live shows that we're doing. I mean, they only get sort of 30, 40 views, but it's great fun just sitting down for 20 minutes, half an hour before each game, previewing the match, getting our takes, ranting about the last game or praising about the last game, whatever it may be. Just sitting there and just chatting Heat hoops for half an hour is just great fun. And especially the great thing about the live stuff is people can interact. You can throw in comments and we can react to them live. So that's been probably my favourite sort of new chapter. But overall, since I've started this account, it's just been great. The NBA in the UK community is brilliant. I love talking to all of you, whether it's a team specific account or guys like you who are just looking at the wider NBA. It's never been better. When I first come on, sort of 2 years ago now, I think there was only the Magic, the Lakers, and maybe one other. I think that was about it. Now pretty much every team's got one. We've got guys like you and met the criteria and Grit and Grime, and all of those are just doing great stuff. And it's great to interact. It doesn't matter whether it's NBA fans in the UK or whether it's Miami fans out in South Florida. To just be a part of it all is just really enjoyable. So I won't be stopping anytime soon.
Nice. And one thing I will say as well, it's a credit to you to watch all the games, because for anyone that doesn't know, apart from a couple, I think this year you've live tweeted and watched every single game live, which I don't think every fan account does. How is that with the day job and the life at home?
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, it is great because I can't wake up the next morning and not know the score and then have to go to work and keep off Twitter all day. So I have to be involved in it, which I do love doing anyway, because you do get to talk to other people whilst you're doing it. But last year I did it. I think I only missed one game last year. Which really annoyingly was like a 6 p.m. UK game, but I had like a family event I had to go to, and I was like, I can't believe I'm going to miss. I've stayed up for all these games and one game, which is a UK sociable time, and I'm missing it. This year, unfortunately, I have missed a handful of games, mainly because of COVID. When I was suffering from COVID, I missed about a week's worth there. And I have unfortunately fallen asleep at half time during 4 games this season. However, the Miami Heat are 4-0 in all the times I've fallen asleep at half time. So
every game now.
That's it. They probably want me to do that. So, but in general, yes, I'm there representing. But yeah, as I say, it's great fun.
Yeah, one of the best kind of tweets I've seen all year when I've watched any games is your tweet about the fact that you had a back-to-back 3:30 a.m. tip.
Oh man, that's
2 times in a row. And as a UK fan and as someone who supports obviously the Mavs with their time zone, I could relate, because the 3:30 a.m.s are killers, and you had 2 back-to-back as an Eastern Conference team, and that is just rough.
Yeah, that's about as rough as it gets. I don't know how any of you guys who support West teams do it. I really don't, because I think about the best you'll get is about 2 a.m. or 1:30, which man, I couldn't do it. So hats off to you all.
And the final question that Rich asked, that's very cheeky, he wanted to ask which is the better looking Healy brother, who both support 2 Eastern Conference teams.
Oh, that's typical Rich. Well, I'm not modest. If you've seen me, that's a pretty that's pretty harsh on Bobby for me to say me. I've got an older brother as well. None of us are particularly blessed. We've all got the Healy nose, this sort of crooked big nose. So no, we're none of us are oil paintings. But I'm going to do Bobby a solid and say he's the better looking Healy brother, definitely.
And he's winning in the standings as well, because he's a 76ers fan, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, he's getting his own back, because they had a bad time last year when they was predicted to do so well last year, and then they really flopped and got swept in the playoffs. So he's starting to enjoy his basketball again, which is nice.
Does your third brother, by the way, support a team, or is he not into NBA?
No, he's an NFL fan. He's a Seahawks fan. But we tried to get him involved in the NBA, and he very loosely sort of covered. He started getting involved with the Bulls. I think he watched for about 3 or 4 weeks and went, "Nah, it's not really for me. I'll just stick to the NFL once a week, easy peasy."
2 out of 3 is not bad though for you,
exactly.
For brothers. That's good.
Yeah,
cool. All right, well, we'll leave that there then. Thank you very much, mate, again for joining me. It's always good to speak to you, and it's good for people to learn a little bit more about the Heat that maybe they don't know, especially for the Western Conference fans who don't really watch the East that much.
Yeah, no, absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Always here whenever you want me, mate.
Cheers. So plans for the podcast, me and Ben will be back this weekend. We're going to do our own team specials because there's no real games this week to review. So we're going to do a Mavs-Cavs double team special, and then the week after, Ben will start his new debate series, and then we'll be back with a regular episode where we review the NBA. So thanks again for listening, guys. Remember to follow us at @_Hardwood Hoops. And Dan as well, can you just shout out your Twitter handle as well for anyone that wants to go follow you guys?
Yeah, so if you want to follow me, even if you're not a Heat fan, still come and follow, because I'm an unbiased fan, so I talk about any sort of basketball, and it's at the Miami Heat UK on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.
Cool, great. Well, thanks again, Dan, and we'll speak to you soon, everyone.